Brutal, bloody, and horrific. These are the three words that come into my mind when I think of the martial law regime. It was brutal, bloody, and horrific because of the 3,257 killed, brutal, bloody, and horrific because of the 35,000 tortured, brutal, bloody, and horrific because of the 70,000 incarcerated, brutal, bloody, and horrific because of how they tormented thousands of Filipinos through the plundering of the Philippine economy and society, and sadly, brutal, bloody, and horrific because of how they continue to do so through historical denialism and false propaganda. This regime was one of the darkest times in Philippine history, spanning from 1972 to 1986. Like any other dictatorship, military power was Marcos's weapon. Marcos greatly embellished and showered the military with money, power, and attention, as it is his tool to enforce and retain his seat in power, and martial law greatly heightened that power. This regime allowed them to exploit and forcefully take natural resource areas for its big and over-budget projects without considering the communities in those areas, even to the point of murder. And in the turnout of the 2022 elections, we are reliving past trauma as the Marcoses crawl back to power. Hahayaan ba natin silang umupo? Hindi pa ba tayo pagod? Parang tayo naghahabol ng impiyerno. This exhibit, entitled Weaving Women's Words on Wounds of War, is an ode to the women and communities who have endured and suffered from prejudice and the regime's impunity before and during the early years of martial law. The women involved in this exhibition belong in Muslim and Katutubo communities, namely Palimbang Sultan Kudarat, Tapbuk and Buskalan Kalinga, Lake Cebu and Tiboli, South Cotabato, Manili, Carmen, Cotabato, Holo Sulu, home waters of the Sama peoples in Sulu and Tawi-Tawi. In this exhibit, I saw different levels of marginalization as women combat discrimination and stereotypes rooted from a patriarchal culture. Identity has always been a contentious topic internationally, with issues of racism and gender inequality. It's a global issue manifesting itself in the local sphere. Every piece in this exhibit is unique and has greatly expressed the stories and narratives of the different communities. After all, these communities guided its creation. In this particular piece, it showcased their stories through weaving. Weaving became a power of women as it gave them a way to be independent and earn money for themselves. If you look closely, indicated in the red and black colored ribbons are their stories, red in their native language and black in English. You can see parts of it knotted, and these are the parts of their stories they don't wish to share. I remember feeling forlorn as I read their struggles. This feeling of mine was amplified when I saw this piece. This piece showed the area of the mosque where people were massacred, mainly because the government at the time wanted the land they were residing in. A contention between Christianity and Islam was also emphasized as their captors claimed to have been ordered by Jesus. Here we witness the manifestation of discrimination and radical beliefs. It must be said that your beliefs and identity should not be the reason for your struggles. Additionally, when I talked with a professor there, she told me that the government was marking the houses of our indigenous communities in Sulu and Tawi-Tawi for their easy identification of what certain community they belong to. It's also so they can easily monitor them. To which I replied, why mark them in the first place? Shouldn't they live without division? There are still significant stereotypes we need to dispel and separation we need to abolish as it is still existing post-martial law. The people there, though free, do not feel like they have freedom, much like the current Philippines. On that note, this particular piece is memorable because the professor in charge there told me that the cornstarch in the tapestry mark signifies fleeting history. The atrocities of the Marcos regime are being denied and revised by the Marcos family's political and propaganda machineries. This exhibit is meant to memorialize and convey their stories. There is no room for forgive and forget when the ones in power have not acknowledged the brutality of the Marcos regime. To forget them is forgetting the people who suffered. To forget their identities is throwing their suffering at the ocean, allowing it to sink deep into the depths of ignorance, letting it rot forever, never to be remembered again. Kaya, kung nakikinig kayo ngayon, magtanda, mamulat, maging kritikal, patuloy na lumaban at tumindig para sa mga Pilipino ng kahapon, kasalukuyan at kinabukasan.